RadioMD.
RadioMD.com.
Become a healthier you 5 days a week. This is Melanie Cole's Health Radio.
When a loved one has a terminal illness, it can be painful to watch them slowly deteriorate. And beginning June 9th, 2016, Californians facing terminal illness are now able to choose how and when they will die. This is very controversial, and it's not going on everywhere in the country. My guest today is Phil Rice. He is a writer and an editor. Welcome to the show, Phil. So tell us what's going on. So first, let's start with California doing this right to life, right to die, and what's going on there right now?
I don't know as far as California goes. I'm in Illinois.
Well, okay, but what we are hearing in the media, no, that's okay. What we're hearing in the media about all over the country, people are talking about these end-of-life options. So when somebody does have to help a loved one fight and accept the process of dying, what do you tell them?
Well, I can share my experience with it, and it obviously is going to be different for each circumstance, but to me, the most profound and loving act we can do is to participate in that moment in the healthiest way possible.
So how does that mean? Some people don't even want to discuss it, even if someone is near the end of life, and this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Some people say, no, you're just going to keep fighting, or no. They don't. Some people don't even want to discuss it.
Right, and I understand that impulse, but for my experience, again, it's the acceptance and the being able to participate even in that moment is just a remarkably beautiful time, can be, and we're not all given those opportunities, but sometimes the options are there, and for me, choosing that option is the way to go. I mean, it really is experiencing life at the fullest, even though it is also what we were talking about is death, but it's actually life at its fullest, as far as my experience has been.
Well, as they said in Forrest Gump, death is a part of life. So we all have to sort of accept it. Nobody can escape that, no matter how hard they try. So what about this sort of right to die and the legal and personal choices that people have to make? What do you tell them about hospice or, one girl with a brain tumor recently went to another state so that she could do what she needed to do.
Well, for myself, and I'm very much, I did read over the recent legislation, and I find that to be a very good thing. But I also point out that we're making choices all the time that affect how we're going to die. And in my case, where my fiance had a brain tumor and was they were having to make decisions: do you do surgery? Do you do this? Do you do that? And each choice actually affected how. This was choosing ways to die, although we didn't look at it at the time. And then there came a point where I had to make a choice: more radiation, more treatment, or come home. And I chose to come home because the fighting at that point meant suffering and torture, basically. So that was what I was weighing, but it is obviously going to be different in every circumstance. At what point do you decide that, okay, let's embrace this end-of-life moment?
Well, because people always sort of keep having that hope, right? They keep saying, maybe there will be some cure for what I've got, or maybe something will change, or I'll get one of those miracles I've heard about. So I think that that's a difficult thing. Now, what about the family members? Because sometimes it's easier for the person dying. And I've had this experience a number of times, Phil. I mean, with many relatives, and I've been with 5 people while they passed away. And I know that sometimes it's harder, like for one of my brothers and sisters, it was harder for them to accept than it was for my mother at the time. So what do you tell family members about accepting what maybe this dying person has already accepted?
Well, I mean, that's a very profound moment for all of us, and I think part of what you're saying is that a lot of people never take that step, and I think all I can say is that, yes, I mean, the awareness is it's going to make a huge difference for that moment if you're able to have that awareness, but a lot of people simply won't. You're right, and in my case with my fiance, who I did marry right before she died, but she had the acceptance and relaxed basically and wrote it out very comfortably. But obviously, different reaction from each family member as far as that went, and you don't want them to go. I mean, but in my case, I was able to turn my mind off a little bit, really. I didn't think about it too much. I just sort of tried to feel what was going on and to be with her and experience that moment. So I was very fortunate that I was able to do that. I mean, I can't tell somebody how to do that, but other than to be open to the possibility of doing that.
Well, can you tell somebody sort of your best advice about starting that conversation with their loved one who might be terminal, saying, well, what is it you would like? How do you want to die? Whether they want certain things. I mean, that end-of-life discussion is another part of this all.
Absolutely, and I think that's a vital discussion to have in advance, if at all possible, and to have to people that you are sharing life with, whatever the relationship may be, to have an idea of how they feel about it or what the end-of-life attitude would be, because you may not have that conversation. In my case, the brain surgery really, really took away a lot of her ability to respond. So I was having to make those choices at that point. But, yes, I mean, just get to know. I mean, that's something that she and I had actually talked about the month before that when we became engaged was, hey, things can change at any moment. We just kind of casually talked about it, but we were old enough to know that. We'd lost people already, so we knew that does happen. And said, well, what would you do? We kind of played out some scenarios. So I did have the advantage of a good sense of what she would have wanted intellectually before we got involved.
Well, see, now that's important because you did, and you were able to have a frank discussion, whereas other people, it doesn't always seem to work that way. They just aren't able to really start that discussion, and they don't even know what words to use.
No, very, very hard. And
so,
with her, she did, the whole battling cancer concept, she did battle it. She fought for 2 months in the hospital, and very strong. It's incredible, actually. The miracle was that we got her home. And once she got home, that's when I had the conversation with her that this isn't, that your journey's taking you away from me, and that's just where it's going. And at that point, she sort of relaxed and was able to embrace the moment.
Yeah, so that is really one of the key messages here. And is there just anything you'd like to sort of finish off with and let people know about that, if they're facing this or if their loved one is facing this? Give us some parting words, as it were.
Well, I would say lead with the love. Just it simplifies itself. Life becomes very simple in these moments, and for me, that's what stood out. Love. I told her, hold on to the love and let it take you where you're going. And I did the same thing, and that's as simple as it gets.
It certainly is, and it's what we all need to do. There comes a certain acceptance, and whether it's your loved one or yourself, when you have to just say, okay, this is what I want. So listeners, start that discussion. If there is somebody in your life who's terminally ill, make sure you know what their wishes are. Make sure you know what they want. And even if you're not terminally ill, have an advance directive, have a will. Make sure you have all of these things laid out so that if you do have the situation where you do want one of these right to die methods, that your loved ones understand and know. And also your donor situation. If you are going to be a donor, make sure you let all of your loved ones know. If you missed any of the information that we give here at Radio MD, you can always listen on demand or on the go at radiomd.com. Your friends can listen. You can share these shows on Facebook. We're also on iHeart, iTunes, and the free TuneIn Radio app. This is Melanie Cole. Thanks so much for listening.